So I've done my TPC course a while back, and I'm just going to go through and read through my article about more of the, America. Well, that was my essays about, and let's talk about it now. And further on, I'll discuss more on depth details if I can remember. I won't get the certain dates because I haven't been reading here. So yeah, let's begin, shall we? Now, what I will say is most of this I'll be stopped most of the time because I have a lot of scribbles. As you can tell here, there's a lot of road scribble. That means I have a lot of grammar problem down here. So okay, so let's talk about how civil rights movement began in America, and also I'd like to move on forward more of the Cuban Missile. So if I won't get the exact dates because I haven't included here, because while I was doing this essay, I just didn't know which part of the story that we need to do. Okay, civil rights movement in America begins after 13, 14, 15 amendment that's been passed through. Okay, that's been passed through in the past. Given African American freedom, abolish slavery, accepting white equality. Decades after 15th Amendment passed through, the white community are still discriminate Africans and colored people. That is more of the civil rights. That's the ones that abolished the Jim Crow, I believe. And then I'm sorry, there's a lot of scribblings around. And soon after, they clarified as to colored people. No, so they have the civil rights. Then there's no discrimination. Then that's how they introduced the Jim Crow law. Jim Crow law is more of like making it difficult for colored people to get, whether for citizenship or just as well just voting or just getting a job. It makes everything difficult, and it's more for white privilege things. So colored people are treated as second-class citizens, violate their right that's been given, and treated like an animal. So pretty much that's what Jim Crow law that's been introduced once the civil rights law that's been passed through, thanks to Abraham Lincoln. And African Americans, sick of these Jim Crow laws, forces of change to get their rights back. The civil rights that they've been introduced, abolish all of them. That will be for the citizens, and as well voting rights for discrimination rights for America. So the process of the colored, especially the black community, African American, it was continuously just constantly battle, fighting their right back. Now, Abraham Lincoln came to the office as a president in 1860s, and the Civil War, soon after he became president, the Civil War has been outbreak. And until the Civil War ended in the January 1865, 13th Amendment has passed through to end slavery. So 13th Amendment is ending slavery. 14th is it's either getting through. I think I asked more about 14th. 14th later on. So in America, Abraham Lincoln got assassinated while he's in the show theatre. April 4th, 1865. Now that is assassinated. He was up in a room. Someone just went to his theatre room and just killed him. That was one of them. After his death, 14th and 15th Amendment was passed through. So 14 and 15 is pretty much giving colored people freedom and rights, equality of ownership of land, citizen, and voting without discrimination. So 14 and 15 has passed through straight after he got assassinated. So therefore 13th is pretty much end the slavery for African and American. Now 18. So it was a decade later on, white community Jamalas. So pretty much a decade later, which is 1865, later 15th Amendment passed through the white community. still treated colored people poorly and distanced themselves. Eventually, they formed Jim Crow laws, segregation with the colored people. The laws especially designed and aimed colored people as separated of color, of equal, especially in southern states due to a large population of colored people. Now, southern states, we talk about Alabama. Gosh, I forgot most of the state. Montgomery. It's usually the southern states like Miami. It's just more of the southern states of America. So it's more like an east and southern states are more of like more of an African community, a large base population over there, while you have the up north where there's not much black African Americans. More slavery has happened through the south, therefore the Jim Crow laws specifically aim into the large minority in heavily crowded states like that. So where I'm up to, Southern History and the large population, faculties has transformed. So things has been transformed, things will go through and 15th Amendment passed through. You got like logos like saying white toilets and colored toilets, water fountain and colored water fountain. So it's a lot second class, it's not maintained, it's not luxurious. Shops as well. And it's pretty much, it's like what happened in the South Africa, apartheid. It's pretty much a common thing in apartheid as well. And just going through all that colored people. If colored people, if colored people trespass property, white community, then immediately they will be physically and verbally and get arrested by the police without pressing charges on white. So even though the white people, well, I say has the power to do anything to the colored person, and they'll never get a criminal offense. And it's amazing how Malcolm X he once dated a white girl, right? And during that time, it's funny to see, like, you're not supposed to date a white person or look at a white person, because you'll get physically abused and verbally abused and you get arrested. Where Malcolm X, somehow he has the balls to get through the whole concept. And it's amazing how you go through that, I've cut people as a transparent person. The laws is also designed a poll tax voting. So there will be a large amount of money. I say, 13, 14, 15 Amendment has passed through. They're like, alright, we'll let you vote, but we'll make it difficult for you because we're going to give you a large poll taxing. So those who doesn't know is the white community has earned a lot more money than the colored people, and the salaries are a lot higher. So for them to go through the poll taxing, it's a lot affordable for them to do it. But for a minority community, it's like you have to be a high class person just to do that. And so that's part of it, on one part. And the law doesn't stop there making it tougher, but also getting into the voting system, you also need to pass a literacy test, and they try to make it as difficult as it can. So make minorities and as well colored people less engaged or just less involved with the voting system. Alright, which is violating the 15th Amendment, preventing them to participate in voting. That is a very important thing. So when you introduce literacy tests, making it impossible for people who get in, and as well as poll taxing as well. Rosa Parks, an African American, a well-educated lady from Montgomery, Alabama. Park is one of the few students from the southern states to receive a high school diploma. Now, for those who doesn't know, African American or colored people, it's very hard for them to get accepted or get high marks, due to they cannot be the same school with the white people. They will remain as the low class schools, which is the colored school. And at the age of 21, it is eligible for register for voting. So at the age of 21, anyone in America is eligible to voting. So Rosa Parks is only very, very few well educated and already passed, a diploma, high school diploma, and it's making it difficult. She tried to enter the literacy test, and they made the test so difficult that Rosa Parks failed multiple times, countless times. The law is purposely designed the literacy test to fail. It took 11 years for Rosa Parks just to make through the voting registry system. At the age of 32, she began to volunteer working as a porterman hired by Nixon to experience the luxury life of white people to have on the train. So that's her second job. Her second job is a tailor assistant. So she has two jobs. So one is catering to luxury lifestyle of white people, and as well you have a second job as tailor to a tailor assistant. On the December of 2nd, 1955 afternoon, Rosa Parks finished. So one of the Decembers in 1959, she finished her work. She finished work shift in a tailor assistant, and her normal route was getting on a Montgomery public bus just to head back home. And she followed the segregation law by sitting at the back of the bus. As the bus seats were filled, left with one white gentleman standing on the bus. Right, the bus driver urged Rosa to give up her seat for the white gentleman because she was sitting at the back, and she has to give up her seat while she's working all day and give up for this white gentleman who was standing through. She refused, and the driver immediately contacted the police, and eventually Rosa Parks got arrested for not obeying the law. On the same evening, Nixon and her husband, bailed Rosa from the jail cell. Safe return home. Nixon told Rosa that Nixon told her she's sick and tired of the segregation law pushing colored people to the edge without rights and freedom, which is technically 13, 14, 15 amendment has been passed through just to go through that and promises. Nixon tried to persuade Rosa Parks because he knows she's the right person to start the boycott. So Rosa was like, oh no, she's a bit reluctant with the idea of causing more harm with the community, which leads to death. I guess anyone could go through that situation. It would be a very tough situation to go through. So the next morning, Rosa made up her mind and agreed with Nixon to start a boycott. Nixon gathered all preachers and activists in the state to spread the news. A day later, Sunday church preachers and activists handed 35,000 pamphlets across the community and as well the services as well. As the community demanded a change, by encouraging to stop using public transport, encourage colored community to find alternative transport to get to work. So, church is on Sunday. The next day, which is Monday. Monday is the day that everyone just started to work. Right? The boycott was a huge success, and the Montgomery public bus services plunged 66% of their customers. The government was furious and began increasing taxi fares and arrest carpooling. Death threats has been made where colored people respond. But you know what? Colored people will respond them with non-violence. The boycott movement needed a spokesman. The community nominated Martin Luther King. Alright, there you go. Which he accepted. Who was he? So the teacher said, who was he? Martin Luther King. It was a young lavish young man with greater public speaking and as well as an activist, and will be nominated as the best person to be a spokesman. After the year of a boycott, it decided to desegregate public transport. December 12, 1956, the following day the bus is back to the business where coloured and white people are able to sit together. That is very important at that stage, you know, because you have drinking water, you have food facilities, you have housing, you have certain areas. It's just too segregated. And slowly, things are going a lot differently, you know. Just because of a bus, you know, segregation is transformed a lot more than that. Martin Luther King wanted to solve and bring equality rights for colored people. Him and his family flew to India for 5 weeks to meet Gandhi, to learn tips and technique how Gandhi made independence for India in February 2nd of 1959. As he arrived back to Montgomery, the Public Commission Alabama named Bull Connor, who ordered the police to defuse and physically against the civil rights movement, with the whole idea of the spokesman for Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, what they've been trying to do. In that time, there weren't much KKKs, Ku Klux Klan, but over the years of 13, 14, 15, and as well the civil rights movement, the Ku Klux Klan has increased phenomenally, and it went to the stage that they were like they'll do anything to diffuse this whole purpose of this civil rights by killing people, ripping their people's organs out in the middle of the streets, bashing them, burning houses down, and eventually they burned a church down where I think two girls were dead in one of the church. And that is the part of the end of this whole assessment that I've done. At that time, it was my draft one, so you could tell I was just looking it through the whole time. But the teacher has been telling me, like, you know what, I think you should cover a bit more, like, different different stuff. Like, maybe my conclusion was, it was difficult for civil rights movement to go through. There's many people has been killed and injured from the process of it. And towards the end, 2008, we have Obama, who is elected as the president, and that brought tears to America, especially to colored people, African American, the things that they've been suffered through all these years, and you know, not able to vote, or not, people are dying, and just things is going terribly. And now you have Obama came to the office, represent the black community. That just brought a lot of attention to that stage. Now, let's get to the stage that what really wanted me to make this video. 25th of November, Castro Fidel has passed away. This man, while I was doing that assessment, I was actually studying a lot more about civil rights, and as well, my teacher's like going through the Cuban Missile as well. So I'm going to go through on top of my head. There's no paper right in front of me. No nothing. So as you can tell, there's nothing here, nothing right there. So I'm going to go talk about this on top of my head. Now, as you guys may know, like during that process when John F. Kennedy came to office, you got Martin Luther King fighting for right, try to be suitable to go through this whole process. You got what's his name again? Malcolm X. Malcolm X wanted to go through a movement, but using the Islamic way and using a way that fits their culture, where Martin Luther King is very suitable to the Western standard as well, you know, by accepting Christianity and as well moving forward. Where Martin Luther King, where Malcolm X, he is such an incredible man. You know, such a true rebel, this guy. He'll take anything. He'll take risk taking as well. Great spokesman. He converted a lot of people into Muslim. and the way how he did it, and with Elijah Muhammad gave him the power, it was very phenomenal just for him to go through the whole process. And you know, when John F. Kennedy came to office, geez, it was a tough decision. You got civil rights movement, you know, you got like wars and tension as well. And I don't know if Vietnam War started or after he passed away, but it was a lot of tension going through, and office beneath him wanted him to go war against or take over, invade Cuba, and which he didn't want to invade Cuba, but you know, people behind him secretly causes attack to Cuba, which is you might know for the Base of Pigs. Try to hide their American, you know, logos to a Cuban logo. Seems like it's like, you know, their own people, you know, just to go through this whole thing. But the KGB find out and they realize, like spies figure out, they spread the message to, to the Cuban governments, and they literally capture all the soldiers that's tried to invade the country. And just it was a time of very familiar phrase that what you're seeing with Donald Trump. You know, like John F. Kennedy, the people beneath him, besides Robert Kennedy, was like always going against. John F. Kennedy really wants to abolish making guns and everything. And when he made the announcement, everything just went ballistic. People behind him won't listen to his command and do things opposite. Wanted to go war, wanted to do this, one is more about that. And it's exactly the same thing what Donald Trump wants to do, is that he wants to get rid of all the majority of the people in the current office at the moment and change them to a new staff that he thinks that it fits to his requirement and standard at the same time. So for me to understand Donald Trump, it's like going through another John F. Kennedy, because this man is like John F. Kennedy, wanted to bring peace, wanted to make change. You know, when John F. Kennedy came into office, they had Base of Pigs, they attack in Cuba, and Cuba just literally just lost business, plunged all their exports, import to America. And then Russia at that time still was having enemies with America, with ongoing like the missile shield that's been expanding through Italy and Turkey as well. So the Russia made a good deal to the Cubans by introduce the you give us sugar and Cuban alcohol and cigars, we'll give you nuclear power and missiles, and you can fight towards the whole America. Now, the most surprising thing for the Cuban Missile is that the most influential people in the world were Castro Fidel, Roy Castro Fidel, and as well Che Guevara. These are the three people I have to give most prop to Che Guevara. This guy, he's the most notable person in the world, the true rebel. He's like a real life superhero, wanting to change the world, you know? This guy, I think he's coming from Chile or somewhere around down in South America, and made his way up to find someone who has the same vision and rebel to change the world. You know, to change their community. They don't like what Americans doing and the CIA is doing. They wanted to change, they want to be a rebel. And for them to, three men with their little army taking over, whole Cuba, whole system, and slowly transform into a communist country, just to prevent America to spread their, invasion in Latin America. Many believe that if it wasn't for Cuba to start the whole purpose of this whole conflict, many of the countries nearby will be invaded by America. It's a very, very powerful moment. Very, very powerful history at that moment. And oh boy, these guys are so incredible. I just couldn't imagine anyone in today's society can have that power. You know, you got like Russell Brand wants to start a revolution, and I get to see his point, and you see Che Guevara and the rest. They started a revolution, but they eliminate a lot of people by doing that. But where nowadays more and more people are doing for peaceful ways, protests and everything, Marxism, and things like that. But where these three men and the whole team, what they've done in that country is beyond amazing. And sadly, now he passed away. Now it's down his brother. They're all old now. But I find a very very similarity with JFK and Donald Trump. The whole scenario behind, because the government would try to do something for Donald Trump, and possibly assassinate him very soon, because history is repeating, because John F. Kennedy made a huge change in the community. Donald Trump will make a huge change as well, but they don't like that. Each time there's a change or preventing them to get to A to B, they'll try to eliminate them. And that's how I see. I think that a lot of people should. I know not a lot of people like America, but they should have a bit of understanding of that sort of history. Would be great. I was very shocked with all the protests in Australia as well. Especially in Melbourne, where I am at the moment. There's a lot of protests. It's just like, why are we focused on America government, where our Prime Minister has been changed like multiple times within 4 years? Like you got like Kevin Rudd, Gillard, Tony, and back to Kevin Rudd, and then Gillard, and then it's just back and forth, and then Tony Abbott, and then Malcolm Turnbull. It's just too much going on with our system. Yeah, I just Castro Fidel, Che Guevara, and Cuba Missile, and then Robert Kennedy wants to be part of the next presidential candidate, but he got assassinated as well, and the whole thing has been set up. Robert Kennedy got assassinated, John F. Kennedy got assassinated. It's these are the true people that get assassinated. And if Donald Trump gets assassinated, it's a disaster to go through this whole process. So it's I truly understand what Donald Trump wants to do: stop globalization, brings jobs back and everything. It's a great idea, but the problem is this has been happening for more than 40 years now. People are used to being on welfare or crime, or just go for the easy route. I'm not sure how these workers, it will take a long time for them to transition back to the workforce or get back to the normal state, because it's been happening for generations now. And hopefully people can accept the change and everything. But what I see in this Donald Trump is going to be another repeated of what Abraham Lincoln did, what has Malcolm X did, what has Martin